Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. Thank you for joining us on the program. As mentioned, we're talking about the new book, Keeping Hope. The author of the book, Lois Deckert, our guest on This Week in America. Lois, it's a pleasure to have you on the program to talk about Keeping Hope. Great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
It is a fascinating and interesting book, and this basically, as I understand, could be your story. Talk about, you were born and raised in India by missionary parents. And talk about that early childhood period that you had and how you came about to write the book, Keeping Hope.
Well, I'll tell you, I had an interesting childhood. When I was 6, I went to boarding school because that was where I could get an English education. And my parents sent me off to boarding school. I wasn't there the whole year. I came home early that year. And I was in boarding school ever since, getting my education. But when I was home, I heard a lot of stories because missionaries love to share stories. And many of the stories in the book are ones that I heard as a child over and over.
It's fascinating because it's a whole different culture that we're exposed to in reading the book, Keeping Hope. Lois Deckert, our guest on the program, that's Deckert. The book is available at Amazon.com. You get information by linking on to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. So you said that basically the family encouraged you, probably after telling stories to the families over the years. It's like you really have to sit down and put this in book form and do a book based on basically your experiences.
Yeah, well, it all started because I took a class. After I retired, I said, I'm going to have to do something to keep alive. So I took a class in how to write a novel. And that's what started it all. And I just began to reach into my memory for the stories that I had heard as a child. And this one about the little girl being found by the roadside is one that really made an impression on me when I was growing up, that somebody would abandon their child.
Well, in fact, I had to go back and read that part of it twice to make sure that I knew that was the case, but it's still shocking when you read it there and the girl keeps asking. Ashalatta, is that how you pronounce her name?
Asha.
Asha, okay. Uh-huh. She's asking and repeatedly asks, how did I get here? How did I get to the orphanage? And they tell her, the story. You wonder what impact that has on a child when you realize you came into the world and you were left by someone.
Yeah. And by the way, the name Asha means hope.
Oh, now that's interesting because the title of the book, of course, is Keeping Hope. Lois Deckert, our guest, is on the program. Asha is the girl that you talk about. A very likable character, and again, is she drawn from like a number of characters that you studied over there?
Oh yeah, there's it's a mixture of characters. I mean, I start off with this child, and then other stories pop in to the edges, and some things I made up just out of my experiences with people there.
Well, Asha goes to the train station, and it's interesting. She's looking around, and she's had this sort of sheltered, isolated life, and she's at the train station, and people are pushing and shoving. She's got a good friend that's going off to nursing school. Uh-huh. And that's a scene that sort of stays with you. This is sort of her introduction to the whole world out there, the big world out there.
Yeah.
Intimidating, wasn't it, for someone like that?
Yeah, I would imagine it would be. Sometimes it was a little intimidating for me because we traveled by train, and it was always this push-shove, get a place to sit, find your luggage.
That yes.
And always get a cup of tea out of the window from one of the vendors.
Yeah, there's a lot of tea drinking and keeping open. You realize that's a custom over there. In fact, that's one of the things that Asha was worried about, and she could do it properly. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. There's an arranged marriage which happens often over there. It's sort of shocking, though, as you're reading from Asha's standpoint, that it suggested that this would be a good marriage for her. She's really, really afraid, isn't she?
Yes, she is. Well, she's been in this girls' boarding all this time and really has no experience with men, except the gardeners, and that's sort of peripheral.
Right.
And so for her, it is a frightening experience. And part of that story is based on the fact that we had a cook who was single, and his parents were not around. So my mother acted as the parent. And so some of the wedding stuff is based on that experience with our cook, because my mother helped arrange his marriage.
Well, and before we get to the wedding, there's this anticipation for the bride viewing. Explain that custom. Viewing? That was interesting.
Yes. Now, that idea I got from books I have read, because I read a lot of Indian authors who write in English, and so I get my bride viewing ideas from them, because we didn't have a bride viewing for our cook.
Well, and it's interesting as Asha goes through this, you can almost feel the tension, the apprehension that she is feeling, and she says, well, to the lady who suggested the marriage, that I will do my best to please your family. There really is a lot of pressure when these marriages are arranged like that, isn't there?
Oh, there is. There's a lot of pressure. And it's really hard on the woman, because the male is very dominant. And she's kind of the little servant in the background.
Yes. Yes. In fact, I think it's during that period she's meeting his family for the first time, and we go back to tea, and she's pouring tea, and one of the older family members is irritated because she felt Asha had spilt the tea on her, and you could feel the tension as this happened.
Yeah, this is her mother-in-law. Mother-in-laws are often very difficult. They are very hard on their daughters-in-law. And I sort of wanted to bring that out because it happens real often.
Well, and you talk about the negotiation going forward, and that's what this really is, isn't it? At its core is a negotiation.
It is a negotiation, that's right. And if the girl has no family history of wealth or prestige, it's much more difficult. And, of course, Asha was an orphan. Nobody knew who her parents were. And this was difficult for this mother-in-law because she wanted to have somebody with status. And Asha had no status.
Yeah, she mentions in there that what this girl has, we really don't know who she is. She doesn't know who she is because she has no parents to come forward.
That's right. She just has the matron of the school, Shantibai, who is her advocate. So that's all she has, really.
The book, it's a fascinating read. It's called Keeping Hope. Lois Deckert is the author and our guest on This Week in America. Just sort of jumping ahead, not to give away too much later on in the book, but she's married, moves to another town, and then her husband dies. Talk a little bit about that experience.
Well, this is very difficult for an Indian woman to have her husband die, to become a widow, because it often just changes her whole life completely. If her father-in-law, mother-in-law, or in-laws look after her, it's okay. But it's just really difficult. She has no future then. I think it's different now. This was way back. But I think it's a little different now. And she has to fend for herself. She has to find some way to earn a living, because if her in-laws do not take care of her, what is she going to do? And she has this son who is, well, he's kind of an ornery character.
To say the least. That was diplomatic, yes. Yeah, he's a handful. Yeah.
There's a lovely Indian word, but there's no point in using it because nobody will understand it. But it means, well, I don't know exactly what it means. I know instinctively what the word means, but I can't translate it.
Yes, you'll read that and go, okay, I know somebody like that. And boy, Asha, she's really got her hands full with him, and she has to raise him On her own, she goes back working, and the story goes from there. And it's just, it's really so well done. How long did it take you to work on this story?
Oh, quite a while. And when I finally wrote it, I was reading it to my family, and they said, "You've got to get it published." And I said, "I don't think so." And they said, they kept insisting, and so I got it self-published. And, of course, I always tell people all the mistakes are mine.
What was that experience like when after you finish and it's like, okay, I've done enough of the proofreading, it's over with, I'm going to submit it. And then when you get a book and you look down and it's Keeping Hope, yep, that's my book, and Lois Deckert, that's my name. What was that experience like when you held that book for the first time?
Well, it was a funny experience. I just sort of was a bit overwhelmed because I never expected to see my name on a book. And I liked the way they did the cover.
Yes, very nice.
And actually, they did a nice job. There were a couple of things I left out that I should have done, like a glossary and things like that. But basically, it was a kind of exciting experience to see it.
What kind of feedback are you getting from family, friends, and people who have read the book? It's very well done. It's very well written, and it really opens up a window on another culture.
Yeah. I've gotten some good feedback. Nobody has told me they hate the book.
I'm sure no one has.
In fact, I have a friend here at the village, the retirement village, who has bought 6 copies.
Fantastic.
For each of her granddaughters and her daughter-in-law and her daughter. And it's kind of, she's my best customer.
What's it like? You finish the book, and Asha, we relate to so much as we're reading through the book and really come to really appreciate her. When the book was over, was there some sort of feeling of, oh, I have to leave her in the past now because she's no longer part of my life?
Yeah, well, actually, part of the last part of the book is based on the Aya that we had growing up, who was very, very precious to us as kids because she was just like Asha. And so part of that is based on her, and my relationship with her, which lasted until I came to the States to go to college.
Yeah, what was that experience like growing up in that environment? I would think that you are exposed, obviously, to a whole different culture. What a great experience that would be.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And, of course, going to boarding school, I was exposed to a lot of different cultures.
Yes.
And I appreciate the experience very much. People feel sorry for me. Well, you went to boarding school away from your parents, and I said, I made some very deep friendships and met some very lovely people, and I wouldn't change it for anything right now.
The book is called Keeping Hope. Our guest on the program is the author, Lois Deckert. That's Deckert. The book's available at Amazon.com. You can link onto our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and get information on the book. Again, it's called Keeping Hope. A few minutes left in the program. Talk about writing a book. It's fiction, but it's based on people that you knew, experiences that you had, stories that you heard. How difficult was that to put it together based on that? Because you were using some basically some real life experiences and doing it in a fictional form.
Yeah, I didn't think it was that difficult. In fact, I wouldn't have wanted to make it autobiographical. It was, I don't know. I'm used to telling stories to kids, and so it's kind of like an extension of my storytelling to my children and to the children I taught. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, and Asha was like that. Telling stories, Bible stories to the girls as well. The book is Keeping Hope. Lois Deckert, our guest on the program. A couple minutes left. The book is available at Amazon.com. With the success of Keeping Hope, are you working on another project?
No, I'm getting a bit old for that. So everybody asked me that, and they said, well, why not? And I said, hey, at 82, I don't want to start another book.
Most people don't stop at one, and you need to do a sequel out there. If you do another story, let us know, because we'd love to talk about it. It's sort of a continuation. The book is called Keeping Hope. Lois Deckert, what has this book meant to you, just in the memories and in going back and putting this together? I would think that would bring back really warm memories of the childhood and the friends and the people that you knew in India.
Yeah, it was a good experience with that sort of thing. I really enjoyed putting it together. In fact, I enjoyed that more than trying to get it published.
Well, yeah, you've got the creative aspect on one end and then the business part of it on another end, and sometimes the creative part is a whole lot more fun than the business part of it.
Oh, yes, very definitely. My granddaughters tell me that I used to write stories for them, and they were going to find the stories that I had written, and they said, you really ought to publish those.
See, don't think you're going to get away with just one book here. I think that maybe the grandkids are going to talk you into coming up with another book.
Well, they might.
It's been fascinating having you on the program. I really enjoyed the book. The book is called Keeping Hope. Lois Deckert is our guest on This Week in America. The book's available at Amazon.com. And, of course, you can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on and get all the information. Lois, excellent job on the book. Please keep us posted if you do book number 2, and I hope that you do. But in the meantime, we'll enjoy book number 1, Keeping Hope. Thank you for being with us on the program. It was great to talk with you.
Well, it was a pleasure to talk to you.
You're listening to This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us.